So we wind up Chapter 7 with a discussion of student loans and personal bankruptcy. For some reason, the student loans are the last thing being mentioned in the chapter, but we'll start with that first. Student loans, basically, for some reason, they also discuss, take a look at figure 7.4 on page 226. They discuss ways to save for college savings plans. We're not going to discuss that now. We're going to discuss that in the chapter with retirement plans, because college saving plans and retirement plans basically work pretty much the same way, so we'd be redundant if we discuss it now. And of course, Chapter 7 is all about debt anyway. So let's talk about student loans and switch over to page 228 in table 7.7. And we're really going to bear down on the federal student loan programs. The government programs are the most popular when students come to borrow money, and of course, we have an epidemic of student loans that you see over on page 231. They talk about having over 1.4 trillion with a T, trillion dollars of student debt. We know how much that is. Actually, we're now closing on $1.5 trillion of student debt. And some interesting spillover from student debt into relationships, right? You take a look at the pie chart on page 231. Over 25% of people interviewed said they would not date someone with student debt. Right? And then if you take a look at the facts of life on page 228, okay, there's been an academic study done which says that each $10,000 in additional student debt results in a decrease of getting married by 7 percentage points. So obviously, carrying student debt, significant student debt, has an impact on life's decisions when it comes to romance, dating, or it comes to marriage. So it's a very important thing to understand exactly what you're getting yourself involved with when you get involved with student debt. Of course, most of us here at college have taken the road to minimizing our student debt by staying home, and I applaud you for that, by the way. Now, looking at table 7.7, we're going to talk about the Stafford loan and the PLUS loans, because those are by far the most popular of the loans. And Stafford loans, and I'm going to compare them a little bit. Stafford loans are loans that are taken out by the student. Get it? Stafford student. They take out that loan. And you can only get the Stafford loan if you file a financial aid form, what they call a FAFSA form, F-A-F-S-A. So even though you might not qualify for financial aid, you should file that financial aid form because it would also qualify you for a Stafford loan. And the Stafford loan basically comes either subsidized or unsubsidized, okay? Subsidized means that the student has shown financial need for the loan, okay? But even if they do not show financial need, they can still get a Stafford loan that is unsubsidized, okay? What's the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized Stafford loan? Well, quite simply, if you show financial need, you will not be charged interest while in college or during a 6-month grace period after you graduate. So that's obviously a great thing, not to be charged interest. While if you get an unsubsidized Stafford loan, you will be charged interest immediately. You have the option to pay it or to have it added to the principal of the debt, which means, of course, that the debt's going to grow if you don't pay the interest during the period of time that you're in school. Okay. You notice that a subsidized loan is only good for undergraduates like you. While an unsubsidized loan you can get as a graduate student. And basically, the interest rate provided in the text, 4.45%, unfortunately has increased. Currently, the interest rate on the Stafford loan is 5.05% for an undergraduate. Okay. Also, with a Stafford loan, there are limits as to how much you can take. You see that in the right-hand column on table 7.7. A freshman can only take up to $3,500 of subsidized loans, $4,500 for a sophomore, $5,500 for a junior or a senior, and the unsubsidized loans you can take an additional $2,000 over the limit for a subsidized loan. So you can actually qualify in the same year for a subsidized loan up to its limit, and then an additional $2,000 in an unsubsidized Stafford loan. Okay, so over to the PLUS loan you go, and the PLUS loan plus parents take out the PLUS loan. P for plus, P for parents. Yeah. So this way you'll never forget it. The PLUS loan for parents of dependent students can be taken. The interest rate somewhat higher than the Stafford loans. They say 7% in the table. It's now 7.6%. Most of these loans have increased 0.6% this year with the increase in general interest rates on the marketplace. Once again, the government is your lender, and the only major advantage of the PLUS loan versus the Stafford loan is the PLUS loan allows you, if you qualify, because they're going to do a credit check on the PLUS loan, if you qualify, you'll be able to take the entire amount you need to attend the college, cost of attendance, less any other loans or financial aid that you have. So while the Stafford loans are strictly limited, the PLUS loans, as long as the parents qualify, could be for the entire amount. And that's a double-edged sword, because a lot of colleges justify their exorbitant cost by saying, well, look, you could afford it. All you got to do is take out a PLUS loan, and they'll allow you to take the entire amount in the form of a loan. Of course, borrowing money doesn't necessarily mean that you can afford it, right? So that, we'll do our budgets and we'll make an individual determination as to whether we can afford to take out that PLUS loan for ourselves. Okay. So those are the important things to note when it comes to college loans. Certainly repaying them over on page 230. Something you need to know. Generally, they're going to start asking for repayment 6 months after graduation or 6 months after you stop attending college. And there are a couple of different, they see the diamonds on page 230, ways that you can make the payments. Obviously, the shorter the duration of the payment, the higher the payment's going to be, but the less interest you're going to pay over the life of the loan, as we've discussed in other areas of Chapter 7. That's the trade-off. Lower payments usually means you're going to pay more for the loan over the life of the loan, because it's going to be for a longer period of time. Okay. They do talk about deferment and forbearance. Basically, if circumstances warrant that you need to suspend payments once you start them under deferment, you can defer payments up to 3 years if you can show basically that you are disabled or you are unemployed and are looking to gain employment but unable to get employment, or you're experiencing some sort of economic hardship. Of course, they're going to ask for proof of that. And if you have an unsubsidized loan, obviously you still have to pay the interest, or it'll get added to the debt. If you have a subsidized loan, then the interest will also be suspended for that period of time that you are approved for deferment. Okay, it's nothing that's automatic, something you have to apply for and get approval of. If you can't qualify for deferment, you might want to go down the route of forbearance. Okay, forbearance, a much more limited period of time, up to 12 months. Interest will accrue, subsidized, unsubsidized, doesn't matter. Okay, so forbearance, possibly if you're doing an internship, medical or dental internship, if you can prove that your student loan payment is equal to at least 20% of your total monthly gross income, then you can qualify for forbearance or some other sort of financial hardship. That where you couldn't qualify for deferment, you might be able to qualify for the much more limited period of time known as forbearance. So those are some instances where you could possibly defer your payment of student loans for an extended period of time. Okay. Looking over now at personal bankruptcy. Okay, where do you go where you basically can't afford to pay your bills, where all attempts at negotiation and credit counseling have failed? Then unfortunately it's time to start looking at the possibility of having the United States help you out and protect you from your creditors. And that's what bankruptcy is all about. It's a legal process. Having the government step in, stop the clock, so to speak, get the creditors off your back for a period of time, and getting some sort of relief from debt that has become overwhelming. Of course, you're going to have to get attorneys involved, pay them. You have to get the courts involved and pay them. So it's not an inexpensive way to go about this. There are 2 types of bankruptcy over on pages 220 and 221. When you think of bankruptcy, you probably think of the Chapter 7, straight bankruptcy. A straight bankruptcy basically meaning that basically they stop the clock, they see what assets you have, what you own, they'll see the amount of debt you have, because you're going to tell them about all your debt, your creditors, and they're going to have to figure out who should get paid what, and basically what type of assets you can keep so you can live, and the rest of the debts would be forgiven if they are forgivable debts. Okay, so you'll see on page 221 there are certain debts that can never be forgiven. They talk about child support, alimony, taxes, and student loans. Okay, so when the government is your lender, basically it's one of those debts that will not be forgiven even in a straight bankruptcy. Okay, so you have to go through obviously a very formal process to qualify for bankruptcy. You have to go to a counseling session ahead of time so you understand what this is going to impact this is going to have on you financially. You have to establish through a means test that your income is in the lower half of your state, basically to qualify for straight bankruptcy. If that's not the case, then you're going to have to satisfy another test to show that your ability to pay your unsecured debts is particularly onerous. Okay, because if you can't prove that, then they're not going to allow you to have straight bankruptcy. Then you have to go to page 220 and qualify under what they call the wage earners plan or Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And Chapter 13 bankruptcy, they're not going to forgive debt so easily. Okay, majority of debts are going to have to be paid over a longer period of time. So this is what they do: they reorganize your debts for you. Instead of forgiving your debts, they reorganize the debts because they feel that you have enough income or your debts aren't quite as onerous. So the courts will, instead of forgiving debts, they will engage in some sort of an extended repayment plan for your debts, even though it's technically still a bankruptcy, belongs to bankruptcy. One thing you have to understand as you go through this process, and you will have to also take a personal finance type of a course once you're done to make sure that this doesn't happen to you again, is that it's going to have a significant impact on your FICO score. FICO score we've discussed before, the credit score. Most Chapter 13 reorganizations are going to last on your FICO score for up to 7 years. A straight bankruptcy, the liquidation, Chapter 7, will last on your credit score for up to 10 years. You have a significant impact where it will lower your credit score anywhere from 150 to 250 points, with a higher impact. If you had a higher credit score going in, it's going to have a more significant impact on lowering your score at that point in time. So bankruptcy is something you really want to use as a last resort, basically hiding behind the government in order to have your debts figured out or forgiven or repaid in accordance with a government mandate. It's something you really would like to avoid vis-a-vis your creditors. Much more efficient to go through an informal negotiation or a credit counseling session, as we discussed in the prior video. Okay, that's it for Chapter 7. We'll start Chapter 8, and we'll talk about the automobile decision next time.
Yay!
No, it's done.
Listen.